I presented on the finances of Lonmin, and well, basically it revolved around the question: would Lonmin, by any means, could I have managed to pay 12,500 to the rock drill operators in August 2012, which was a question posed to me as a kind of peer background researcher to the Marikana Commission.
And what were some of your findings?
Well, the major findings was that you have to go to the subsidiaries of a multinational enterprise like Lonmin to answer such a question, because it is the local subsidiaries which are paying the wages, which are paying the taxes, and which also have the obligation under the mining charter to, for example, build freestanding houses to the workers. The workers are not employed by Lonmin PLC. They are paid and employed by Western Platinum Ltd, Eastern Platinum Ltd, Messina and Akanani, which are the subsidiaries of Lonmin in South Africa. And it's very important that the mother company doesn't engage in transfer pricing and exaggerating invoicing of these subsidiaries. But that is precisely, in my view, what Lonmin has done. Like many other mining companies, I would say. So it seems to be a long-standing practice in South Africa. That is how you siphon off profits, surplus from the companies. And it's a main explanation for why these subsidiaries can't afford, as the saying goes, higher wages. So I think that in order to, for studies and even for wage bargainings, if you would be a trade union representatives, you have to see the finances of the subsidiaries where your members actually are employed. And in many accounts and in the debate in media, in Business Day or whatever, the journalists and even researchers, they are looking at the official annual reports of Lonmin PLC and draw the conclusions from that. But you have to go down to the level of subsidiaries who actually are the employer in this case. And that's what the work for the Marikana Commission made it possible for me to do. So that was a major revelation for me. During the cross-examination of Mr. Mohammed Sidat, who was the director of Western Platinum Ltd from 2007 to 2010, and by the way, in 2012 had when he was employed as a consultant during the events, had a daily salary of 25,000. And during the Marikana Commission's hearing, he had when he was sitting in cross-examination, he earned 11,000 Rand per day. It was put to him, the finances of Western Platinum, and why the Western Platinum Ltd could manage to afford to pay 250 million Rand in so-called sales commissions to an outfit on Bermuda, and about 230 million Rand in so-called management fees to Lonmin's head office company in South Africa, which is called Lonmin Management Services. And this was asked also because in August 2012, because of what was occurring, Lonmin took a decision to waiver these demands on its subsidiaries and say you don't have to pay this now for 6 months. And of course, what comes into question here is if this is a so-called arm's length business agreement. If that would have been possible to do if these were two independent companies who were just trading with each other. And I think the conclusion is no, it's not an arm's length agreement. The management fees and the sales commissions which are paid from subsidiaries to head office companies or to other subsidiaries higher up in the organizations are political agreements. It's not regulated by market forces. I think it's the sizes of these commissions are determined by tradition. If you speak on the wider economic level, first, in the debate about transfer pricing and illicit capital flows, it seems like that the interest is focused on the erosion of the tax base. But if you think about it, if you take a schematic example, and if you think about a corporate tax rate of 28%, so that you have to pay 28 million rand on a 100 million rand profit. In order to earn 28 million rand to escape that cost, you have to move 100 million rand out from the country. So that is why we from AIDC, we have started to speak about erosion of the wage base and erosion of the local investment base. And if you think about it, if you compare 28 million rand in gained taxes that you don't have to pay, and the whole amount that you have to shift out from the country to a tax haven in order to earn that, you see that there's 72 million rand remaining, which is shifted out to Bermuda, Bahamas, Cayman Island, Dubai, whatever it is. So I think that is a major weakness in the tax justice campaigns which NGOs have been now starting all over Africa. That the plight of the workers and what this capital flight means for the wage levels in South Africa and other African countries is completely neglected in these campaigns. And we hope that it will come into the focus.
What do you think is a better approach?
Well, you have to, in order to, also for campaign purposes, and in order to bring trade unions and worker organizations into this, so that they understand that this, with transfer pricing and illicit capital flows, that is not only about taxation, but even more about their wages. For campaign purposes, you have to explain this to people. And you have to explain it also to trade union negotiators, that they must ask for the finances of the subsidiaries where their members actually are employed. They shouldn't sit down and read annual report, which are more like a propaganda publications for the shareholders. And when the internal transfers and the business between fellow companies is not at all reflected. So that is what the power of the Marikana Commission made it possible for me to look at. But it was also clear to me that you don't really, if you go through a proper procedure at the institution called CIPC, you can in fact have access to a lot of the financial statements made by subsidiaries. And then you can see really if they can afford, if they not can afford this or that. Affordability is a very malleable concept. It's really a matter of what you choose to afford. If you choose to afford to pay 1.5 million rand in wages to, let's say in Lonmin, it's an income elite of about 70 people, 70 persons. And then sort of many of the mine workers have 50, 60, 70, 80,000 rand, 90,000 rand per year in income. And if you can imagine the increase of unemployment in South Africa, and if you have a more or less stagnant real wage during all this 10-year period, but more and more of your members of your family is becoming unemployed, you can imagine the tension, the social tension emerging, because you have less and less for your own consumption. You have a responsibility to care for your family members, and more people in your family cannot provide for themselves. You have to send money back home, etc., etc. And that is what built up also to the strike at Marikana. On the macroeconomic level also, it's a kind of undisputed truth almost in the business press and among mainstream economists that they almost equalizes profits to the national income, and they have a corporate view on wages and regard it kind of like sit in the office of the direction of a company, and they regard wages as a cost because wages cut into the profits for the shareholders. But I mean, from the point of view of the national economy and from even in the national accounts of South Africa, wages are not a cost, it's a part of the national income. And in platinum industry and in a company at Lonmin, 30 rand of every 100 rand goes to wages and 70 rand goes to profits. And when I say that, I include the contract workers, the precarious employed contract workers at Lonmin and other mining companies. They comprise about 25 to 30%, 25 to 30 workers of every 100 are not there as permanent employees. And they have a wage which is about half or a little more than half of the permanent staff. And that is how also these companies make their super profits. And in my view, it's completely outrageous because these contract workers, they are not there as short-time employees. They are there for 2, 3, 4 years. And they have not the same benefits, and they have sort of extremely low wages. And of course, I think there's many sort of indications that they were also a part of the strike and the labor unrest in Lonmin in August 2012. They were there at the copy. And I mean, it's a major task for the trade union movement in South Africa to organize these workers, of course. So it's because of when you include the contract workers in the statistics over how much of the national income, when in platinum, the contribution to the national income of platinum companies, if you include the contract workers there, then you are down to basically the capitalists, if you speak in these terms, they control 70 rand out of every 100 rand of new value, and the workers, the employees, control, if you put it like that, 30 rand out of every 100. If the wages would be to increase in South Africa, it would not be bad for the economy. It would be good for the economy. And the reason is that the workers and their families, they are spending their money. But the profits, a lot of the profits are only recycled into the financial system, where they also create havoc, increasing havoc for the last 10, 15, 20 years. You have these incidents of financial breakdowns, etc., etc. You can't have a local industry in South Africa if a working class family can't save 3,000 rand to buy a bicycle or buy a radio or a television set or whatever. It's impossible. You don't even, if you go around in South Africa, you will see that people are walking everywhere if they are not going by taxis. I don't think it's only a cultural issue. You don't have even one bicycle factory in the country, because to produce bicycles, you have to have a mass consumer base, but you don't have it in South Africa, and it's a major, the structural demand deficit in the economy is one major reason for mass unemployment in South Africa, in my view. It's the low wage regime which is breeding unemployment. I mean, when you look also at the official profits, you don't take into account all illicit financial flows out from the country. You have this global financial integrity, which are producing reports now, which becomes more and more quoted in media. For 2012 in South Africa, the equivalent of 29.1 billion US dollars were illegally siphoned out from the country. And that is, in that year's exchange rate, 2012, that is about 300 billion rand, which is just going out from the country and supporting consumption elsewhere. Because in the final, at the end of the day, the economy is about consumption. But the issue is who needs more consumption? Is it the elite of 0.5%, 1% of the population? Or is it the vast mass of employees and unemployed and their family members, etc.? And where you have a situation when 1 out of 4 South Africans sometimes during the month go to bed hungry because they haven't had money to eat. So it's a humanitarian disaster on the family and individual level, and for the economy, it's very, very bad. It completely make it impossible to develop a local industry. So you have to break the dominance of the multinational companies in the economy. It has remained intact since 1994.